What is going on, guys? It's the Mad Dragon. We're on to the Autumn Nations is here for 2024. Team announcements for round one have started. This one's going to be for England versus New Zealand. It's a rematch of what we got to see going on in the summer, right? We're going to take a look at the team, see who's been selected, give our initial reactions, some thoughts on some good picks, some bad picks, maybe some changes we might have made along the way. And then finishing off with a score prediction going into this one, which is always a tricky one between England and New Zealand. As always, drop down in the comment section your thoughts on the team, who's missed out in the team that you thought could have got in, and we will jump in very quickly before we get on to the actual teams, because some people might not see it. We are running a fantasy league and a predictor series alongside of this. So quickly, for anyone who hasn't seen the announcement on the community tab, we have got the predictor up running on Superbru, so you can go through and pick your teams. There's a bunch of people who have already joined in. You might have already had an invite if you've already been involved in the predictor before. Some people have already got teams locked in for scores already, which is nice to see. And for anyone wanting to join in with the predictor series, go over to the to Superbru, and glenrows is the code you guys will need to join in with the predictor. And then unfortunately, Superbru's not doing a fantasy alongside of the predictor for the Autumn Nations. Don't know why. However, Autumn Nations is running their own fantasy. I haven't sat down and done my team yet. I might even do a video on it. I might do those Friday videos where I go through my my fantasy team as well. But if you want to join in that, if you fancy getting a bit more out of your rugby stuff, the way you can join in with that is go over to the Autumn Nations, actual page, and the league code for that one is 11185. That is how you can join in with the Mad Dragon Autumn Fantasy League and get a bit more out of your rugby. As always, I will drop the codes and stuff in the description. So if you don't want to have to go back and rewind the video, there will be in the video description, so you guys can go find them whenever you want. With all that out of the way, then let's dive into take a look at the teams. We'll start out with the home team, which is England. Now, England have been an interesting team going on in 2024. Going back over some of their games that we've had so far, every match is wildly tight, and it's been interesting because they've turned up for some performances in the big games. They beat Ireland in the Six Nations, which is something I did not see coming. They had the games in the summer versus New Zealand. They lost by 1 point in the first game, lost by 7 points in the second game. But in both games, I thought they had really solid performances. But then in other games where I just had them down to win, I thought England would be able to take this one. Going up against Italy, got the win, but by 3. Going up against Wales, again, I thought an outright win for England, won by 2. Lost to Scotland in Murrayfield, which I expected. But across the whole 2024 campaign, every game for England is finishing within that 3-point marker. The only one outside of that is versus Japan, which maybe you'd be expecting from sort of tier 1 international going up against sort of tier 2, even with Eddie Jones over in Japan now. But they did take on by like a good sort of 35 points or so. But it's been close in every game across 2024 season, which is maybe how they've moved a little bit more now with the Borthwick era of rugby. It's a much more aggressive defensive style, but they're not necessarily slamming those games for points, especially against some of the bigger teams. They're maybe a bit more conservative at times. You're seeing those penalties and stuff coming in. But like I said, the performances in New Zealand did, I think, show them in quite a good light, losing only by a few points. That one game where Bowden Barrett came on and just changed the whole dynamic of the game. That is something that England will have to keep an eye out for this one. So taking a look at the team, we're going to try and go through them a little bit quicker than normal. I might try and do that over the Autumn Nation. So Ellis Genge, Jimmy George, Will Stewart taking over that front row. I think that's probably where you'd be aiming for with this England front row. I think that's still where they are. I heard Joe Marler's gone from the England team. He's had a whole thing going on Twitter. They've said it's not linked, but he's removed himself from the camp for personal reasons. So don't know what's going on there, but that means that you'll probably be having Ellis Genge as the start there. Still a good front row. Jamie George's. I mean, as for so many teams going on in the world of international rugby now, where lineouts aren't going well, Jamie George at least is still getting some good throws in, which is going to be very useful going up against this New Zealand side. As for this lock department, Maro Itoje and George Martin going in the lock department. Now, lineouts is one of the things I saw over the Rugby Championship where I was thinking, you know what, that might be an area where New Zealand could struggle against a team like England. Maro Itoje certainly caused some issues for them in the summer as well. Line-out situations could be a big one to look out for in this. Back row, Chandler Cunningham South going in alongside of Tom Curry and Ben Earl. No Sam Underhill, which did surprise me. Not even on the bench. I haven't seen anything about an injury ruling him out, but I thought Sam Underhill would be in this squad. Chandler Cunningham himself's been getting into the role, which is nice to see. He's going to be starting this one. Ben Earl playing 8. A vice captain. They've got so many vice captains in this team. I don't know what's going on. They've got 3 in the starting team, plus Jamie George as the captain, plus you got George Ford down here as a 4th vice captain. There's too many vice captains, right? At some point, I mean, at least distribute them. You've got 3 vice captains in the forwards. At least, split them up a bit. Maybe have different areas taken over. I don't know. But a solid through, 1 through 8. The only thing that might be going against England a little bit is just going to be having that game difference. They haven't played since July. Taking a look at that, it was their last game versus New Zealand. Of course, New Zealand have had the whole Rugby Championship. We've got new laws coming in with this Autumn Nations as well. So a couple of things to look out for this England team. Halfback partnership. Ben Spencer going in alongside Marcus Smith. A couple of people have been surprised by Ben Spencer. I don't think it's necessarily terrible to have Ben Spencer. I think if he's playing in good form, get him in that 9 shirt. Put him outside Marcus Smith at 10. Fly off, one of the areas I've seen a bit of concern go around. Marcus Smith's absolutely the nailed on 10 there. George Ford hasn't had that many minutes recently. Getting straight into the team. Finn Smith, could have maybe given him a shot for this one coming on from the bench. George Ford, more experience, more caps, absolutely. But time on the pitch is important. It's going to be one of the areas to keep an eye out for. If I was New Zealand going into this game, start targeting Marcus Smith a lot in this one and try and put their fly half under pressure and sort of try and mix up that that England team a little bit more. Centre partnership, Ollie Lawrence going in alongside Henry Slade, another guy who's not played that many minutes, going in at outside centre. We will get onto the bench in a second, but just in terms of the coverage as well, England have gone 6-2 and they've gone, halfback partnership mix up now. Marcus Smith can swap to 15 if you needed him to. Centre is looking a bit loose, maybe out there. Maybe they're going to be looking at Tommy Freeman, sort of moving over towards centre. I'm looking forward to see how this England team's going to work. I've typically preferred when they've done the playmaker being at 12. Ollie Lawrence going in at 12. Again, I quite like Ollie Lawrence being someone that can come off of someone's shoulder as opposed to being, the 12 who's going to carry the ball hard. I would quite like maybe to have even seen Henry Slade and Ollie Lawrence up round and try to do it. Maybe I've got a brain a bit more of an older England team though, so maybe that'll change up for this one. And then that back 3: Tommy Freeman, Fei Waboso, and George Furbank. Who, boy, I think Freddie Stewart's just gone. George Furbank was one of those ones that I was like, I don't know if he's going to be able to handle this. He has impressed me across that Six Nations. I thought, actually, he's putting his own name on that 15 shirt. Freddie Stewart's struggling to get a look in. Not that he's necessarily done anything wrong. It's just George Furbank seems to be offering a lot more in terms of that 15 shirt. So a bit of a shame to not be seeing him in there. Maybe it's time for Freddie Stewart to start looking at maybe some other things. Maybe you could start expanding your game plan a little bit. Maybe you try and move towards being kind of what Elliot Daly's been in the past. Fullback, but he's a winger, but he's also a centre. Maybe you start trying to see if you could diversify a bit more, in your own positioning. He's got that good backfield cover. I'm sure he'll be fine out on the wing. Maybe try and, put your hand up a bit more for Borthwick by being a little bit more larger coverage or what have you. Replacement forwards going in then. We've gone for the 6-2. Theo Dan, Finn Baxter, Dan Cole, Ezekwe, Ben Curry, and Alex Dombrandt going in there. Like I said, Sam Underhill, I feel like is a bit of a miss for me there. Theo Dan, I've just still not got a lot to say about this lad in an international jersey. He just does not have the game time. And the games he does come into, gets about 5 minutes at the end, and I do feel like he ends up making about 3 or 4 mistakes. I think he's so desperate to get in the team. I would like to see him have some good game time. I don't think New Zealand's going to be the game they're going to throw him in at 60 minutes. I can see him being a late one again for him. But Sam Underhill, for me, might have been someone to have looked at getting into this team. And then I said, there's replacement backs. Harry Randall and George Ford as the replacement backs. As mentioned, actually, Elliot Daly, maybe, just for that broader coverage, fullback, wing. Could go at centre if you need him to, and he can play centre well. Long range kicking, something that can come in big use. They're finishing games within 3 points, winning or losing. England are. Long range kicking, right at the end of the game, 79th minute penalty. Elliot Daly, long range versus New Zealand. I could see this ending within a score. I don't think it would have been a bad move to have had someone like Elliot Daly, but they've gone down Harry Randall, George Ford. Let's see how they'll get on. Moving on to New Zealand then. A team, my goodness, that has been up and down for me. They're such a hard team to pinpoint quite where they're at. Not the New Zealand I've been used to seeing for all my years of watching rugby. You know, they're getting the wins against England in the summer. Good win against Fiji, lost to Argentina, then a really good win against Argentina, lost to South Africa, narrow victory to an Australian team who I were not expecting to turn up for that game, and then a big victory versus Australia, and then they had the win last week against Japan. Didn't catch the game against Japan last week because, as is rugby now, it's on every different paid channel and you have to pay for like 7 different subscriptions. I wasn't going to pay just to watch that one game for me, but I caught the highlights from it. Very different team to the one stacked up here, and they still put a good 40 points on Japan. But I have seen the comments from a lot of people about that one saying still underwhelming for them. I still think Japan are a solid team, and with, you know, Eddie Jones at the helm now, I still think Japan can be a dangerous side. I don't think putting 40 points on Japan is you know, too much to be sniffed at. But hey ho, there we go. Starting out with the team then: Tamaiti Williams, Cody Taylor, Tyrell Lomax. This for me probably the starting front row. You know, I don't know if anything's happened to Ethan de Groot. He's just sort of not here. I have to assume maybe there was a bit of an injury. Maybe you would still look at Ethan de Groot starting in that loose head shirt. Tamaiti Williams does come on from the bench and make an impact in 2 games. I got himself a try last week, I think, against Japan, right off the back of the maul as well. So can start, can go on from the bench. Ethan de Groot maybe just to have a bit more of a solid scrummager with a bit more experience, but he does give away penalties. So, you know, half a dozen of one, 12 the other, whatever that phrase is. Can't even remember off the top of my head. But Tamaiti Williams, you know, coming in there, I like him. I think, you know, good for a young lad. And Cody Taylor, one of the shining stars over that rugby championship for New Zealand, because, man, there was a couple of people underperforming, but he was one that really, really stepped up. Lock department: Scott Barrett versus Tupou Vaa'i. And Tupou Vaa'i, who I think outshone Scott Barrett in the rugby championship. I thought he had a solid rugby championship. Sam Darry's not in this one either. I don't know if he's off with the New Zealand 15. There's a whole other team of New Zealand players going on there. Sam Darry was one, didn't blow me away, didn't necessarily do anything wrong. Had a pretty decent rugby championship, or someone, you know, you could also look in there if you wanted to move Scott Barrett to 6 or what have you. But the back row for New Zealand: Satiti, Sam Cane, Sarvea. Wallace City played 8 against Japan and looked to be having a good performance. He's another one for me that over this rugby championship is come out of the blue for me. If you follow a lot of your club level rugby, you will have seen him coming through. But for someone who catches a lot more of the international, came in, great performances. Can play 6 or 8. He's gone back to 6 with Ardi Sarvea at 8. You know, I think that's fair enough. Sam Cane is just still the one for me in this New Zealand back row that I think I know he got to try against Japan, but a lot of people got to try against Japan. I still think Sam Cane is someone to be looking at in this New Zealand team. Could there be a better 7? Could someone else take that position? Could you even move Ardi Sarvea to 7, Satiti to 8, and find a different 6? You know, you could mix it up a bit more. I'm still not quite sold on Sam Cane and that New Zealand team at the minute. Halfback partnership: Cortez Ratimer going in alongside of Bowden Barrett. Damien McKenzie moved to the bench this week. They're hoping for some impact. Saw a couple of comments about the Japan game saying defensively wasn't there last week. I did see him fall off of one of the tackles. I can't remember who it was. An absolute unit ran through him to score a try, but he did get a great try-saving tackle against the Japanese right winger. And I thought that was a really solid. So, you know, if I caught the full game, I'll be able to break that one down a bit more. Move to the bench for this one. Again, coming on in that second half, I don't think it'll be a terrible move for them. Bowden Barrett starting at 10. I think, you know, one of the players from that summer tour, when he came on against that New Zealand team, single-handedly changed the game. They could have looked to do the same thing. They've not. They've gone down, got him for 10. So we'll see how that gets on. Centre partnership: Geordie Barrett alongside Rieko Ioane. I thought Geordie Barrett was done for 2024. He injured his leg during the Rugby Championship, and I thought he was just done. I thought 2024 was over for him. That's a shame. We won't be seeing him. He's back in. Man, people work miracles in the physio teams now. Back in the side. This for me is the starting centre combo. Anton Linnett-Brown, for some reason, Razor is desperate to get him on the pitch. He comes on so early in changing the team. They normally take off a winger and move Ioane onto the wing and then put Anton Linnett-Brown. I don't think Anton Linnett-Brown adds that much once he comes onto the game. Maybe he has 2 or 3, you know, nice little passes that get further out. But for me, he holds on to the ball too much and he takes it in himself rather than looking further outside him. I don't know if Anton Linnett-Brown's the way for me. I did also see Havili play, and I think he can also move into centre. I saw his crossfield kick to nobody. on against Japan. So I don't know. Maybe they still got something to look out there for. I might have liked to have seen Proctor, maybe for that centre, coverage, and saw him get in there, because Geordie Barrett can also move around as and when you need him to. And then back three: Caleb Clark, Mark Taleo, Will Jordan. A mixed bag going on for these back three. Will Jordan's finally got himself back on some try scoring. Caleb Clark did really well, got tries, had good games, also had yellow cards for the dumbest things ever. Like, both of his yellow cards were just so dumb. Cost me loads of points in the fantasy, but just don't do them. Cut that out of your game. A really good, rugby championship for him. Mark Taleo was someone who was quiet in that rugby championship, and getting his shot now on the right wing alongside of having Will Jordan slide to that fullback, might give an opportunity to open up. England have gone for the 6-2 on the bench, so I can see them playing a bit more of a forward game. Maybe your backs begin to open up a bit more. Maybe Mark Taleo gets to do something. And then quickly, this impact bench. I spoke a lot about impact in that rugby championship because it just wasn't there at all. But going on this week, Armour, Tuangafasi, and Tosi, Tuipulotu and Finau finishing them off, as well as those replacement forwards. Cam Roygaard, Anton Linnett-Brown, and Damien McKenzie going on from the bench. So it's nice to see that they've maybe got a bit more depth now in that scrum half department. When Aaron Smith went, I was like, man, is TJ Perenara going to live up to where Aaron Smith is? And I really wasn't seeing it. Cordes Ratimer and Roygaard, dangerous scrum halves there to be able to just snipe a little cheeky run and go for a try themselves. Someone to keep an eye on. Something the England defence will have to keep an eye out for. And that is one thing that I think this game in particular is going to be a big one. Again, I don't see a big scoring game in terms of your score predictions. There was 1 point in it in game one. There was 7 points in it in game two. I am still leaning towards New Zealand to be able to take this one. I don't think it'll go as far as 7. I'm going to pull it back in. I'm going to say New Zealand to take this one by 4. I think it's going to be my call. I just think having a bit more, having those games leading into this, I think they'll be a bit more on point for this one. Maybe it works against them. Maybe they're a bit more knackered from having played more games. I think a bit of, linkage work between England not playing since July. Do have the home advantage. 6-2, they're going to go for those forwards. New Zealand, at the minute, might be a team you feel like England can punish in the forwards, actually, which maybe you wouldn't be able to set over the last few years for New Zealand. But the backs are dangerous. I think those replacement backs as well for New Zealand. It's going to be playing that expansive game versus the way England wanted to play at the minute, which is very tight. It's very defensive, off the line, quick, really put them under pressure. Don't let them get away. It's who's going to execute that game plan better. Will England shut New Zealand down before they can do something, or can New Zealand play around England, in which case, once you get round that that rush defence, you start causing a lot more problems, and then it'll just be kicking and how to get on. New Zealand do have the broader range of kickers there, because you've got Geordie, Bowden, and Damien McKenzie to come on later. England, you've got Marcus Smith to start out. Slade could kick. I guess actually you could get Slade in there to take some kicks. Then you've got Ford coming on later, but again, those minutes missed in the 13 and your replacement 10. Minutes being missed in international could be a big one. So we'll see how they get on. I'm going to say New Zealand by 4. Let me know down in the comment sections your predictions for this game. And like I said, sign up to the Fantasy and the Prediction League if you haven't already. Looking forward to this one, guys. I'll see you all next time. Bye-bye.